I'm very pleased today to be talking to Joe Ranger, the co-founder of Grierson Dickens Ltd here in their offices at Farnham in Surrey. Grierson Dickens is a chartered financial planner with 10 employees, and in March of 2023 the company transitioned into full employee ownership through use of an employee ownership trust, an EOT. So Joe, perhaps it'd be helpful if you could just explain a little bit about the Grierson Dickens business.
Yeah, we started the business in 1999, two of us as founders, and we've now got 10 employees, and we have developed a proposition that's different from the majority of financial planning businesses, in that we charge hourly fees, and that sort of completely differentiates us in terms of the way we charge and the types of clients that find our services appealing. And obviously it's a similar model to accountants and solicitors, so we have close relationships with accountants and solicitors.
Excellent. And as you said, the business was founded in 1999, and so 20 years on, 23 years on, what was the background of the sale of the company to the EOT? Were you looking more generally at your exit options at that time?
Yeah, and I'm 61.
You don't look it.
Thanks. And it was really all about the exit plan, stroke retirement for me. James wants to remain in the business for about another 5 years, so the plan is that I will exit almost immediately, or as I hand over my management responsibilities. And we had looked at other routes, exit routes, including sale, obviously, to external party.
And as you say, you considered other exit routes. Obviously, a lot of business founders would sell their company to a trade buyer or perhaps to a financial buyer, and in the end, you decided to sell the business to an EOT, to your employees. I mean, what made the sale to an EOT more attractive than those conventional exit routes?
Okay, yeah, I mean, we had two quite attractive offers from external parties, but we, as I said earlier on, have a very different proposition to what's sort of normal in the marketplace. And despite reassurances from those purchasers that they would respect and continue with our particular business model, we felt that would always be slightly uncertain, because you never know what will happen to that company. So there may be, another predatory company that comes and buys them, and then they don't want your business model anymore. So we felt that to protect the integrity of what we do, and to make sure that we could continue with offering that proposition to clients who have come to rely on it, and where we've got strong intergenerational links of a sort of passing of wealth, which is all based on an hourly fee proposition, we felt it was disingenuous to sell to a business that might not be able to carry on with that proposition. And the other side of it was that our employees have obviously grown up in our environment, and we felt also that those companies that might buy us would be likely to want to find cuts in overheads, and of course in our business that's about people. So we felt a loyalty to our clients and to our team, and therefore EOT seemed like a really positive route to go down.
I mean, some people, when they look at selling their business to an EOT, are put off perhaps by the fact that they're paid over a long period. If you sell your company to a trade buyer, perhaps you'll get the majority of your proceeds up front.
Yeah.
With an EOT, you have to wait perhaps 5 to 8 years.
Yeah. I
mean, was that an issue for you and James?
Yeah, I mean, I think we recognised that with an external buyer, there would still be an earn-out. So, that's not without its pain, particularly when you've run your own business for 20-something years. So, for us, it was a case of balancing the pain of doing an earn-out and having a boss that you might not be used to, versus having a much more longer earn-out period, but one which is much more of a known quantity, and where you feel you can, that relationship, and you understand the dynamics of it, and actually it feels like a safer route in many ways because of that.
And when you'd made that decision, or you were sort of weighing up the options to go for a sale to an EOT, I mean, did you speak to other business owners, or perhaps did you go to the Employee Ownership Association to try and do a bit of research, or due diligence, if you like, on that?
Yeah, very much so. And I'd been to some sort of small workshops run by people in our business, that, you know, so people who run wealth management businesses, and EOT was never mentioned in those conversations. But some of those negative factors, so people who had already sold actually to an external company, and had bad experiences, and were going through the process of trying to buy their business back again from the sale, which was obviously a painful process. So I'd spoken to those people on the one hand, and then I went to spoke to people at the Employee Ownership Association, and those who'd gone down the EOT route had far less negative things to say than the trade sale people. So I mean, just reinforced our decision, and there were some really interesting businesses there.
And did you speak to Barry Horner at Paradigm Norton?
I mean, not specifically. No, not specifically. But at the Employee Ownership Association, I did cast my net quite wide and sat in lots of workshops and heard other people's business issues. And, you know, to be honest, there were lots of people in other industries that had very similar issues to us. So it's not an industry specific thing that we're dealing with. It was about culture and care and people and having pride in the organisation that you've built and wanting it to continue with the same values as you started it with.
So once you decided to go ahead with the EOT transaction, how did you go about finding an advisor to help you with that?
Funnily enough.
Were they any good?
Well, as I say, the first time I went to the EOA conference was in 2019, so just prior to COVID, literally a couple of months before COVID. And I did the tour of all the stands there and spoke to a number of different people, including you.
Yes, I remember that, yeah.
And you know, there were lots of very good, credible people there. And in the end, I think you gave us a lot of time before we ever signed up with you. So you gave us a lot of time back in 2019, and then of course it all kind of ground to a bit of a halt during COVID because it didn't feel appropriate for us to pursue that at the time because we weren't sure how things would pan out. But as soon as we kind of wanted to pick up again, it was natural for us to come back to you because you had given us time before. And also for us, there's a sort of a match, I think, in terms of, you know, we're a 10-man business, you know, we don't need a massive London firm. And equally, we do need somebody to hold our hand through the process.
Sure. And
that was the real kind of tipping point. That was the thing that really made us commit to working with you, because we seemed like a match. You know, we seemed like similar types of businesses with similar types of values, and you understood where we were coming from.
So obviously in an EOT transaction, the price that the shareholders get is determined by an independent valuation. Were you happy with that the valuation did reflect the value that you maybe could have sold your business for if you had gone out to the market and talked to those trade buyers and financial buyers?
Well, you know, because we had some offers fairly recently, one of them a very solid offer and the other one a kind of tentative one, we knew the ballpark, we knew roughly what we were looking at, and the valuation that we did base the EOT sale on was within that ballpark. It wasn't significantly different.
We're sitting here sort of 6-7 weeks after the EOT is completed. Obviously it's early days, and I don't expect there's been any massive impact in the business since the beginning of March. But what do you hope will be the longer term impact of having moved to employee ownership on the business?
I think there are sort of just several different aspects to it. One is the impact on the clients, which we see as being wholly positive because they will get what they bought originally rather than having, you know, the goalposts change part way down their journey along their journey with us. So for the clients, we see it as wholly positive. For the team, again, it's a very positive thing, because when they've paid us off, there's a significant amount of money available every year for them to be able to, put lots of money into their pensions, and for them to be able to have a share in what they've worked so hard to develop, rather than that money being paid to shareholders, in your sort of classic model. So we feel that it's repaying clients' trust and repaying the team's efforts and trust. And in terms of the business itself, there's no doubt in our minds, because we've been talking to our team about this for a long time, and there's been a lot of enthusiasm from them, and our staff retention has been very good, and we think, we know from the conversations we have with them that that retention has been largely based on, or partly based on, the fact that they knew we were going to go down the EOT route, and that was something that we talked about and were committed to, and we've done it. And it's that sense of follow through and meaning what you say and doing what you say you're going to do, and that sort of thing, which I think generates a lot of loyalty. And
obviously, it's a tight labour market at the moment.
Yeah.
It's difficult to get qualified people,
Yeah.
and you're providing financial advice, and you need to get good, well qualified people into your business.
Sure.
Do you think, now you're employee owned, that will help you recruit people into the business? You're a bit different from your competitors, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely, because we're already slightly different, and I think one of the issues in small businesses, as you'd be well aware, is that there's always that question mark about, you want people who have entrepreneurial spirit to join you, but actually, if they're entrepreneurs, fully entrepreneurial, they probably have done it themselves already. So, so it attracts people who do have that entrepreneurial spirit, but who actually don't want to do it on their own, and want to be part of something where they can influence the future, but perhaps don't have the confidence or maybe the money even to set up on their own. So, yeah, I mean, I do think it's got a very positive spin from that perspective.
And you're now in a structure where the business is owned by the employees through a trust.
Yeah.
Previously it was you and James as 50% shareholders, and another one of your staff as a small shareholding too, but principally you and James, who were the shareholders. So you were the board, and you're also the shareholders, so you were reporting to yourselves, as it were. Do you think it will be a difficult, or do you see any challenges from you as directors now, having to report to an external shareholder, the trust? Do you think that there'll be any problems with that?
No, I don't think so, because the trust is, in our scale of business, 3 people, yourself, me, and one of our employees, obviously, as the employee trustee, and I don't see any reason why we wouldn't make the same decisions as we would have made as when James and I were reporting to ourselves. I can't really see that there's any daylight between the two. No,
and I think you say I'm a trustee of your trust, and I'm a trustee of 5 or 6 others.
Yeah.
And our experience is that the relationship between the board and the trust is a cooperative one. Obviously, the trust does have certain powers that it can exercise if for some reason the board is not functioning properly, but there isn't really any conflicts with the trust trying to tread on the board's shoes, or the board totally ignoring the trust and deciding to do whatever they like without any oversight at all. So it does work well in practice, although some owners do quite rightly feel a little bit concerned that they're losing control and having to report to someone having been their own boss for so long. Yeah, it feels to me as though if it's the right thing for the business, then it's the right thing for the business, and that will be right for the employees, but it'll be right for us too. So long as you can kind of have a logical and substantive case for doing something or not doing something, I can't see why there should be conflict. Yeah, and I think that's exactly how it works in practice. So a final question, Joe. Having been through the process, what would be your advice to other business owners who are thinking of embarking on a EOT transaction, or perhaps weighing up an EOT versus a conventional sale?
Yeah, I think that there are a few things that have emerged as real clear indicators for me as to whether it's the right thing to do, and one of those is about future value of the business. So the business that we operate, we believe, around 12 employees is the right number to be able to maintain the quality of what we do, and to be able to deliver in the right way. It's a boutique business. I think if we were trying to grow an empire, build an empire, it wouldn't be the right thing, because you'd be selling before the value is really emerging. So I spoke to somebody recently who was looking at it as an option, but he very clearly has massive growth plans for the next 5 years. And I was thinking, well, if that's where you want to be, you're just going to feel that you've missed out, or you're going to have foot in both camps, and I think it's not very tax effective, is it, to sell out of the EOT?
No. Generally, most of our clients sell 100%.
Yes.
Because there are certain issues
Yeah.
with holding a minority stake in an EOT structure.
Yeah, so that was a key issue for us, and we very much felt that that had we been growing for a massive growth, going for a massive growth strategy, it wouldn't have been right for us. But as an eternal business concept, for us, absolutely, it's right. So that's one thing. The second thing is having sort of proper engagement with staff in advance. We feel that's made a massive difference. So talking to our staff very early on, so 5 years ago, about the concept, what did they think, how did they feel about it, would they be up for it? We took a couple of them to the Employee Ownership Association last year, the event, and it made a huge difference. And they came back buzzing with enthusiasm and recognising the opportunity. So I think early engagement, finding the right partner to deliver for you, the right firm to help you implement it, and making sure that it meets your long-term objectives. I think those are the three key things for me.
And you raised a good point there about certain types of businesses perhaps aren't suitable for EOT. If it's very fast growing. We're seeing articles in the press at the moment about John Lewis who need to invest significantly in the business, and obviously their shareholders are not able to fund the business. IFAs, financial planners, generally they are low capital businesses, so they should be well suited to an EOT. Yeah. Just like the architects, lawyers and accountants, the partnership businesses of Victorian times, perhaps, again, seem to be very well suited. So I think we agree. Those professional services firms are very well suited to an EOT structure. Yeah. Whereas perhaps very fast growth businesses or businesses which need a lot of capital investment, perhaps are not so well suited.
Well, a lot of the firms that were asking us if we were interested in a sale, the external firms, a lot of them are businesses who are just going around buying up IFA firms, and they'll be buying lots of them, and they'll be, they'll have lots of money behind them from all sorts of sources, and clearly that's just a totally different model. So they couldn't be an EOT, or they might be eventually, but not for some time. Whereas firms, I think, as you said, sort of the architect, and I describe it as a boutique type firm. I think it fits for boutique firms absolutely perfectly, up to a certain scale, and then you go beyond that, and actually the issue of not being able to raise funds or whatever, I think becomes more significant potentially, as in the John Lewis scenario, where they're having to sort of try and reverse back out of it, aren't they?
Yes, we'll see. Yes, we'll see. Lots of speculation, but not much clue what might happen next. Another thing we think differentiates us is the aftercare. So we say to clients, for the year after the deal, either as an advisor or actually as a trustee sitting on the trust, we will be around to make sure that the structure that we've advised you to implement actually works, and that everyone knows what to do. Sure. Or if there's an issue with HMRC, or there's an issue with Companies House, that you've got someone to help you deal with it.
It became very clear to us quite quickly, actually, that you were the right firm for us to engage with, and that was because we spoke to 3 firms, one of whom was very legal orientated, which is great, but we knew that we would have to conduct the orchestra, so they would do some of it, but we would have to get other advisors to help with other bits. And when it's an unfamiliar arena, we didn't really want to have to do that. We wanted somebody to put their arms around us and help us through the process. At the other end of the scale, there was a big law firm, and you know that you're paying a massive amount of money for very specialist knowledge, which I'm sure is fantastic, but actually, again, it's legal, and we wanted an integrated service, and we also have, I mentioned earlier on that we were looking for somebody that sort of understood us as a business, and we have very high standards. We call them our standards, which is about how quickly we respond to things. So we respond on the same day. If a client contacts us, we'll respond on the same day. And you had the same ethos, and that mattered to us enormously.
Yeah.
And hence why we managed to get the deal done so quickly. Despite FCA queues and problems, allegedly, we started the work in November and finished at the end of February, despite 30 days of that being sitting with the FCA. So it was that arms around us, helping us through the entire process. Having having Elaine, the lawyer, you, Mark, as the people that were always responding, and I don't think we ever waited more than 4 hours for a response to an email. So
no, well,
you beat us.
Well, we do. I mean, we do like to, no matter if it's a small transaction or a very large, complicated transaction. What we try and do for clients is project manage the whole transaction, so that we can see where the problems will arise. We have knowledge and visibility of financial, tax and legal issues. Obviously, if it gets very, very complicated, we can bring in external resource to address certain issues, but hopefully we're experienced enough to be able to see where those problems will arise, and deal with them so that the timetable doesn't get derailed. And you're right, we were a bit surprised that we managed to complete the transaction in pretty much 3 months, from a sort of standing start. We obviously had a lot of help from your team, who were very good at providing excellent financial information, and were very responsive to questions that we had to help us do the valuation and the tax clearances. So yes, it was a good marriage of a client who wanted to get it done and was well organised, and hopefully an advisor who had the experience and project management skills to execute
Absolutely, absolutely. We were delighted.
Good. Well, good. Good to be speaking to a happy customer.